The slap echoed like a gunshot. Corporal Tyler Brennan's palm connected with the back of her head so hard that Petty Officer 3rd Class Kira Blackwood stumbled forward, her tray crashing to the floor. Mashed potatoes splattered across government-issue linoleum. Green beans scattered like shrapnel. The metal tray spun twice before clattering to rest against a table leg. "Wrong table, squid," Tyler snarled. "Marines only." She was 22 years old, 5'4", and weighed 115 pounds soaking wet. What Tyler didn't see was the thin silver chain tucked beneath her collar. He didn't see what hung from it, a Navy SEAL trident, one of fewer than 50 ever awarded to a woman, and he had just made the worst mistake of his life. The mess hall at Camp Pendleton held maybe 200 people at capacity. That Thursday afternoon it held 163. Kira had counted them when she walked in. She always counted. Exits, 4. Potential weapons within arm's reach, 11. Threats requiring immediate attention, 0. Until Tyler Brennan decided to change that math. She'd been eating alone in the back corner, the way she always did. Grilled chicken that had seen better days. Rice that clumped together like wet cement. Green beans boiled into submission. Standard military fare. She ate with the mechanical efficiency of someone who'd learned that meals were fuel, not pleasure. Someone who'd eaten MREs in a Yemen basement while listening to gunfire 3 floors above. Tyler had been watching her for 11 days. She knew this because she'd been watching him watch her. That was what operators did. They cataloged threats before threats became problems. Tyler was 6'2", 220 pounds of gym muscle and unearned confidence. He had a regulation high and tight, a jaw that looked like it had been chiseled from Marine Corps propaganda posters, and eyes that tracked her movements with the kind of predatory focus she'd seen in men who hurt people for sport. He'd started with comments, loud enough for her to hear, quiet enough for plausible deniability. "Check out the squid. Think she belongs here? Navy sends their females to do a Marine's job. That's why we're losing wars. Bet she's never seen anything more dangerous than a paper cut." Kira had ignored all of it, not because she was afraid, not because she couldn't respond, but because responding meant revealing, and revealing meant questions, and questions meant her carefully constructed cover would collapse like a house of cards in a hurricane. She'd promised herself no more violence unless lives depended on it. But Tyler wasn't going to let her keep that promise easily. "Hey," his voice cut through the mess hall noise. "I'm talking to you." Kira continued eating. Chewed, swallowed, reached for her water. "You deaf, squid?" She took a sip, set the glass down, picked up her fork. Tyler's face flushed red. His 2 buddies, Lance Corporals Martinez and Patterson, flanked him like backup dancers in a bad music video. They were smirking, waiting for the show. "I heard you," Kira said. Her voice was flat, calm, the kind of calm that preceded either complete submission or complete destruction. "I'm choosing not to engage." Martinez snorted. "She's choosing not to engage. You hear that, Brennan? Little Navy princess thinks she's too good for us." "Maybe she needs a reminder," Tyler said, stepping closer. "This is a Marine base, Marine mess hall, Marine tables. You don't belong here." Kira set her fork down, looked up at him, held his gaze for exactly 3 seconds, long enough to make a point, short enough to avoid escalation. "I belong wherever my orders put me, Corporal. Same as you." "Your orders?" He laughed. "What are your orders exactly? Pushing papers? Filing reports? Making coffee for real warriors?" "Something like that." "See, that's the problem." Tyler leaned in. His breath smelled like energy drinks and protein bars. "You Navy types come onto our base, eat our food, use our facilities, and you think you're one of us. You're not. You'll never be." Kira picked her fork back up. "Noted." She took another bite of chicken. That was when Tyler snapped. His hand came down hard on the back of her head. Not a punch, a slap. The kind designed to humiliate rather than injure. The kind fathers gave sons when they wanted to remind them who was in charge. The kind that said, "You're nothing, and I can do whatever I want to you." Kira's face slammed toward the table. Her tray went flying, food scattered across the floor. Her chair scraped back with a shriek of metal on linoleum. The mess hall went silent. 162 people stopped eating, stopped talking, stopped breathing. Kira stood slowly, very slowly, the way a coiled spring unwinds before it snaps. There was mashed potato on her Navy working uniform, a smear of gravy on her sleeve, a cut on her lip where it had hit the table edge. She turned to face Tyler. Something in her eyes made him take a half step back. It was involuntary, instinctive, the way prey animals respond to predators. He didn't even realize he'd done it. But Martinez noticed. Patterson noticed. Half the mess hall noticed. Kira didn't say a word. She just looked at him, through him, into him. Then she reached up and touched the thin silver chain at her throat, tucked it more securely beneath her collar, and walked out. No confrontation, no threats, no tears, just that look and the click of her boots on linoleum as 162 people watched her leave. Tyler's laugh broke the silence. Too loud, too forced. "That's right, Squid. Run back to your ship." Martinez high-fived him. The mess hall slowly returned to its normal rhythm of conversation and silverware. But not everyone was laughing. Staff Sergeant Raymond Callahan had been sitting 3 tables away, eating his lunch and pretending to read a training manual. Callahan was 60 years old, a veteran of the First Gulf War and 3 combat deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan. He'd spent 18 months attached to a JSOC task force in Ramadi before rotating back to conventional forces. He knew operators when he saw them, the way they moved, the way they sat, the way they processed information, constantly scanning, constantly calculating, constantly ready. The Navy woman Tyler had just assaulted moved like an operator. She sat like an operator, and when she'd looked at Tyler, she'd looked at him like an operator deciding whether a target was worth the ammunition. Callahan pulled out his phone and sent a text message to an old friend in Naval Special Warfare Command. "Need a favor. Background check on Petty Officer, 3rd Class. Kira Blackwood. Currently assigned Camp Pendleton. Something doesn't add up." The response came back in 3 minutes. "That file's above your pay grade, Ray. Way above. Stop asking questions." Callahan stared at his phone for a long moment. Then he looked at the door Kira had walked through, and he started asking more questions. Kira didn't go back to her barracks. She walked to the base gym instead, changed into PT gear, and started hitting the heavy bag. Left jab, right cross, left hook, right uppercut. Each strike precise, controlled, devastating. She'd learned to box from her father when she was 8 years old. Master Chief William Blackwood, SEAL Team 3, had believed that every child should know how to defend themselves. He'd taught her stance and footwork in their backyard in El Paso, taught her how to slip punches in Counter-Strike, taught her that fighting wasn't about anger, it was about calculation. "Anger makes you stupid," he'd said. "Stupid gets you killed. You want to survive? Think. Always think." He'd died thinking. A compound in Afghanistan, 2019. His team had been ambushed during an extraction. He'd stayed behind to cover their withdrawal, took a bullet through the throat, bled out in the dirt while his teammates escaped with the high-value target. Kira had been 16, a junior in high school, planning to study nursing. The day after his funeral, she'd walked into a Navy recruiting office. "I want to be a SEAL," she'd said. The recruiter had laughed. "Ma'am, there's no such thing as a female SEAL." "Then I'll be the first." She wasn't the first, but she was among the first. The Navy's experimental gender integration assessment program had started in 2020. Kira had been selected in 21. She'd completed BUD/S class 347 in 2022, one of 3 women to finish out of an initial class of 14. The other 2 had dropped during Hell Week. Kira hadn't. Not when they'd held her underwater until her lungs screamed. Not when they'd made her run until her feet bled. Not when instructors had stood over her during surf torture, telling her she didn't belong, telling her to quit, telling her that women couldn't hack it. She'd finished, earned her trident, been assigned to SEAL Team 4, and then Yemen happened. Left jab, right cross, left hook. The heavy bag swung on its chains. Kira's knuckles were raw, her arms burned, but she kept hitting because if she stopped hitting the bag, she might start hitting something else. "You're going to break your hands." The voice came from behind her, female, commanding. Kira caught the bag and turned. Colonel Victoria Ashford stood in the gym doorway. She was 54 years old, the base commander, and the first woman to hold that position at Camp Pendleton. Silver eagles gleamed on her collar. Her gray hair was pulled back in a regulation bun. Her eyes were the color of gunmetal and twice as hard. "Ma'am," Kira came to attention. "At ease, petty officer." Ashford walked closer, studied Kira's raw knuckles. "I heard what happened in the mess hall." "It was nothing, ma'am. A Marine corporal assaulted a Navy petty officer in front of 160 witnesses. That's not nothing." "I don't want to make a formal complaint, ma'am." "I know you don't." Ashford's voice softened just slightly. "I also know why you don't." Kira's eyes narrowed. "Ma'am? I read your file this morning, Petty Officer Blackwood. Your real file. The one that required 3 phone calls and a direct authorization from the CNO's office." Ashford paused. "Impressive record. Yemen, the hostage extraction. Your team pulled 14 Americans out of a Houthi compound against 80-1 odds." Kira said nothing. "2 of your teammates didn't make it out." Still nothing. Petty Officer Owen Garrett and Chief Petty Officer Nolan Hayes. Garrett took a round covering your extraction. Hayes bled out from shrapnel wounds before the medevac could arrive. Ashford's voice was gentle now, almost kind. "You held Hayes's hand while he died, told him about your father, promised him you'd stop." Kira's voice cracked. "Ma'am, please stop." Ashford stopped. The gym was silent except for the creak of the heavy bag still swinging on its chains. "Why are you here, Petty Officer?" Ashford asked quietly. "You could be anywhere, training with your team, running operations, doing the work you trained for. Instead, you requested transfer to training support at a Marine base in California. You took a desk job. You've spent 2 months pretending to be a paper pusher while Marines like Brennan treat you like a punching bag." She stepped closer. "Why?" Kira's jaw tightened. "I made a promise." "To who? To them? Garrett and Hayes?" "To my father." She swallowed hard. "I promised that if I survived, I'd find another way. A way that didn't involve—" She stopped. "Killing people." Kira didn't answer. Didn't need to. Ashford nodded slowly. "I understand more than you know." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "But I didn't come here to discuss your past. I came to discuss your future." She handed the paper to Kira. "Joint Readiness Assessment. 3-day field evaluation. Marines and Navy personnel together. Physical endurance. Tactical problem solving. Leadership under stress. Results go in permanent service records." Ashford's eyes locked onto Kira's. "I'm requiring Corporal Brennan's squad to participate, and I'm specifically requesting that you participate as well. Not as an evaluator, but as a competitor." Kira unfolded the paper, read it, looked up. "Ma'am, with respect, if I compete in this assessment, people will figure out that you're not a desk sailor?" Ashford's smile was thin and sharp. "Good. Maybe it's time they learned." "I came here to disappear, ma'am, not to—" "You came here to hide, Petty Officer. There's a difference." Ashford's voice hardened. "Hiding doesn't honor the men who died for you. Hiding doesn't honor your father. And hiding doesn't help the next generation of women who want to follow in your footsteps. Kira flinched like she'd been slapped. You have skills that 99% of military personnel will never possess, Ashford continued. Skills earned through sacrifice, pain, and the deaths of people you loved. You can waste those skills pushing papers and getting slapped by insecure corporals. Or you can use them to show every person on this base what a real warrior looks like. She turned toward the door. Assessment starts Monday, 0600. I expect to see you there. She was gone before Kira could respond. Kira didn't sleep that night. She lay on her rack in the nearly empty barracks, staring at water-stained ceiling tiles, running calculations she didn't want to run. If she participated in the assessment and performed to her actual capabilities, her cover would be blown. Questions would be asked. Her file would be pulled. People would know what she was. If she didn't participate, she'd be disobeying a direct order from a full-bird colonel. And if she participated but deliberately underperformed, held back, pretended to struggle, let Tyler win, she'd be betraying everything her father had taught her about honor. Never lie about what you are, William Blackwood had said, even when it's easier, even when it hurts. You stand up and you show them who you are, or you die a coward. He'd lived those words, died living them. Kira reached under her pillow and pulled out the chain she'd worn since Yemen. The trident hung heavy and cold against her palm. Beside it, 2 dog tags clinked together. Garrett, Owen A. Hayes, Nolan K. She'd carried them for 14 months. Every day, every night, a reminder of what she'd survived, what she'd lost, what she'd promised. I don't know what to do, she whispered to the darkness. I came here to stop, to be normal, to find peace. The darkness didn't answer, but somewhere in her memory, Owen Garrett's voice did. Peace isn't the absence of fighting, Ghost. Peace is knowing what you're fighting for. She closed her eyes. Monday was coming. Tyler Brennan spent the weekend lifting weights and talking trash. You see the look on her face? He crowed to Martinez and Patterson. Thought she was going to cry. Pathetic. You think she'll report it? Martinez asked. No chance. Types like her never do. Too scared of making waves. Tyler loaded another plate onto the bench press. Besides, what's she going to say? Big, mean Marine hurt my feelings? She'd be laughed off base. I heard Colonel Ashford's making us do that field assessment, Patterson said. 3 days in the bush, full combat load. Good, Tyler grinned. I'll crush it. Probably end up on the commandant's list for promotion. I heard the Navy squid's participating too. Tyler's grin widened. Even better, I'll crush her too. Show everyone what happens when you put females in warrior billets. He didn't notice Staff Sergeant Callahan watching from across the gym, and he didn't notice the text message Callahan was sending. Contact made with NSW Command. File confirmed. You're not going to believe what's in it. Recommend you attend Monday's assessment. Front row seat to the show of a lifetime. Kira arrived at the assessment staging area at 0545 Monday morning. 40 participants had volunteered, 38 Marines, 2 Navy personnel. Kira and a hospital corpsman named Rodriguez, who looked about 12 years old and had clearly never seen anything more strenuous than a morning jog. Tyler was already there, stretching with Martinez and Patterson. He saw Kira and smirked. Well, Squid decided to play with the big boys. Kira didn't respond. She was too busy cataloging the terrain, the equipment, the evaluators setting up their clipboards. 3 days, 72 hours, physical and tactical assessments that would push everyone to their breaking point. She'd done this before, in Yemen. 72 hours defending a compound against overwhelming forces with no extraction coming. This was nothing, but it was also everything, because this time she wasn't fighting to survive. She was fighting to remember who she was. Colonel Ashford appeared at exactly 0600. Behind her stood a man Kira recognized immediately, Master Gunnery Sergeant Raymond Coyle. 52 years old, 3 silver stars. One of the most decorated close-quarters combat instructors in the Marine Corps. He trained raiders and special operations personnel for 20 years. He'd also trained with SEAL teams during joint exercises, which meant he knew exactly what to look for. Ashford explained the assessment rules. 3 phases: physical endurance, tactical problem solving, combat casualty care under stress. Results would be recorded, performance would be evaluated, and at the end, those who excelled would be recommended for advanced training opportunities. This isn't a competition, Ashford said. This is a revelation. By the end of these 3 days, you'll know exactly what you're made of, and so will everyone else. Her eyes found Kira in the crowd, held them for exactly 2 seconds. Then she turned and walked away. Master Gunnery Sergeant Coyle stepped forward. First evolution begins in 10 minutes. 15-mile tactical movement, full combat load, simulated casualty scenarios throughout. Anyone who falls out gets documented. Anyone who quits goes home. His eyes swept across the group. Any questions? Silence. Then gear up. Clock starts at 0630. Kira pulled on her pack. 65 pounds of equipment, water, and simulated ammunition. Standard load. She'd carried heavier in Yemen, carried wounded teammates on top of it. Tyler shouldered his own pack, grunting slightly at the weight. "Hope you can keep up, Squid," he said as he passed. Kira didn't answer. She just started walking. And she didn't stop. By mile 8, 12 participants had dropped out. Tyler was still moving, but his form had deteriorated. Shoulders hunched, steps shortened, breathing ragged and uncontrolled. Kira hadn't altered her pace once. She moved with the machine-like efficiency her father had drilled into her. 1 foot in front of the other. Breathe in for 4 steps, out for 4 steps. Ignore the pain, ignore the fatigue. Ignore everything except the next checkpoint. Mile 10 brought the first simulated casualty scenario. A mannequin rigged with fake blood lay across the trail. Evaluators with clipboards watched from the trees. Most participants stopped, assessed the casualty, attempted basic treatment. Tyler knelt beside it, breathing hard, and tried to apply a tourniquet. His hands were shaking. He fumbled the windlass, dropped it in the dirt. "Time," Coyle called. Casualty bled out, moved to secondary care position. Tyler's face twisted with frustration. Kira approached the second mannequin 30 meters ahead. This one had multiple wounds, simulated gunshot to the chest, shrapnel injuries to the legs. She knelt, assessed, prioritized. Chest seal first, then tourniquets, then secondary wounds. Her hands moved with surgical precision. No wasted motion, no hesitation. "Time," Coyle called. "Casualty stabilized. Excellent triage protocol." He made a note on his clipboard. Tyler watched from behind, his face unreadable. Mile 12, mile 14, mile 15. When they crossed the finish line, only 19 of the original 40 were still standing. Tyler was one of them, barely. Kira looked like she could run another 15 miles without breaking a sweat. Coyle marked something on his clipboard, walked over to Kira. "Petty Officer Blackwood. Master Guns. That's a hell of a pace you kept. Just putting 1 foot in front of the other, Master Guns." He studied her for a long moment. His eyes dropped to her left forearm, where faded scars crossed her knuckles. "Those from training?" "Some of them. And the others?" Kira held his gaze. "From places that don't have names on maps." Coyle nodded slowly. "Get some water. Phase 2 starts in 2 hours. He walked away, but Kira could feel his attention on her for the rest of the day, and she knew that whatever she'd been hiding was about to become very, very public. That night, around the assessment camp's small fire, the survivors compared notes. Tyler sat with Martinez and Patterson, nursing blistered feet and bruised egos. 15 miles with that load? Martinez groaned. "My feet look like ground beef." "Shut up," Tyler snapped. "You made it. That's what matters." "Did you see the squid?" Patterson asked quietly. She barely broke a sweat. Desk sailors do cardio, Tyler said dismissively. Doesn't mean anything. Wait until the tactical evolution. That's where real Marines separate from pretenders. Kira sat 20 meters away, eating an MRE in silence. She could hear every word they said, just like she could hear the conversation happening on the other side of camp, where Staff Sergeant Callahan was talking quietly to Master Gunnery Sergeant Coyle. Confirmed by NSW Command, she's the real deal. One of the first women to complete BUD/S. Earned her Trident at 20. Deployed to Yemen with Team 4. Jesus, Coyle's voice was low. The hostage extraction. 14 Americans pulled out, 80-1 odds. She lost 2 teammates, but got everyone else home. And she's here doing training support work? Requested transfer after Yemen. Word is she's got survivor's guilt like a truck. The 2 operators who died were covering her extraction. Silence. Does Ashford know? Ashford ordered me to pull the file. She's the one who put Blackwood in this assessment. Why? Because that Marine Corporal, Brennan, has been harassing her for weeks. Ashford wants to make a point. Hell of a point. Kira finished her MRE, packed away her trash, and waited for dawn. Dawn came cold and gray. Kira was already awake when the first light touched the camp. She hadn't slept more than 40 minutes total. Not because of discomfort, she'd slept in worse conditions, in Yemen, in crawl spaces, in drainage pipes, in bombed-out buildings. She hadn't slept because every time she closed her eyes, she saw Owen Garrett's face, heard his voice, felt his blood on her hands as she tried to hold his insides together while the compound burned around them. You awake, Squid? Tyler's voice cut through the pre-dawn silence. He was standing 10 feet away, stretching his shoulders, watching her with that predatory focus. I'm awake. Good, he stepped closer. Because today's the tactical evolution. Real warrior stuff, not the jogging we did yesterday. Kira said nothing, just continued packing her gear. You know what I think? Tyler crouched down to her level. I think yesterday was a fluke. I think you trained for that specific test. Cardio queens can do that. But tactics? Decision-making under pressure? That's where real operators separate from pretenders. You might be right. Her agreement caught him off guard. He'd expected resistance, defiance, something he could use to justify his contempt. I might be what? Right. Kira zipped her pack closed. Guess we'll find out. She stood and walked toward the assembly point, leaving Tyler crouched in the dirt with his mouth half open. Master Gunnery Sergeant Coyle called the remaining 19 participants to formation at 0600. His voice was rough from a night of too little sleep and too much coffee, but his eyes were sharp as scalpels. Today's evolution is tactical problem solving. You'll be divided into 2 teams. Each team will be given a building clearance scenario with limited intelligence and hostile role players. Your job is to plan, execute, and adapt. Evaluators will document everything. Performance today counts triple what you did yesterday. Sergeant Williams raised his hand. Who picks the teams, Master Guns? I do. Coyle consulted his clipboard. Team 1, Corporal Brennan as team leader. Martinez, Patterson, Rodriguez, Kowalski, and Henderson. Tyler straightened visibly. Team leader, this was his chance to prove himself. Team 2, Petty Officer Blackwood as team leader. The words hit the assembly like a mortar round. Tyler's head snapped toward Coyle. Master Guns, with respect, she's Navy. She shouldn't be leading Marines in a tactical exercise. With respect, Corporal, I didn't ask for your opinion. Coyle's voice could have frozen jet fuel. Petty Officer Blackwood's personnel file indicates instructor-level qualifications in small unit tactics from previous joint training assignments. She's qualified. You're not in a position to question my decisions. But, did I stutter, Corporal? Tyler's jaw clenched. No, Master Guns. Then shut your mouth and listen. Coyle finished reading the team assignments. Kira got Staff Sergeant Callahan, Sergeant Williams, and 4 Lance Corporals, whose names she'd memorized the day before, but who'd barely spoken to her since the assessment began. Callahan caught her eye as he joined her team, gave her a small nod that said, "I know what you are, and I'm here to help." Kira nodded back. The first scenario was straightforward. A 2-story structure with 6 rooms, 3 hostile role players, 1 hostage. Standard stuff. The kind of problem they taught at every combat training center in the country. Tyler's team went first. They approached like they were filming an action movie. Tyler kicked in the front door without checking the windows. Martinez and the others flooded in behind him, weapons sweeping wildly. Patterson tripped over the door threshold and accidentally discharged his blank-loaded rifle into the ceiling. "Contact front!" Tyler screamed, firing at the first role player he saw. It was the hostage. "Cease fire!" Coyle's voice boomed through the building. "Cease fire! Hostage is dead! Team 1 has failed the scenario." Tyler's face went purple. "That's not fair." The hostage wasn't where the intelligence said. "Intelligence is never perfect in the real world, Corporal. That's why we have something called positive identification before we shoot." Coyle made a note on his clipboard. Team 1, scenario failed. 1 friendly casualty, mission compromised. Tyler looked like he wanted to punch someone. His eyes found Kira standing with her team outside the building, and the rage in them was pure and hot and dangerous. "Team 2, Coyle called. "You're up. Same building, different configuration, different role player positions. You have 5 minutes to plan." Kira gathered her team in a tight circle. "Okay," she said quietly. "Here's what we're going to do." She pulled a stick from the ground and drew the building layout in the dirt. Marked entry points, marked angles of fire, marked dead zones where hostages might be held. Standard 4-man stack on the primary entrance. Callahan, your point. Williams, you're 2. I'm 3. Patterson, your rear security. The rest of you hold the perimeter and watch the windows. "What about hostile identification?" Callahan asked. "We clear each room systematically. No one shoots until we have positive ID on hostile intent. Weapon raised, aggressive posture, direct threat to the team. Anything less, we challenge verbally first." "And the hostage?" "Hostages are usually held in interior rooms. Limited exits, easy to control. We work outside in, clear the perimeter rooms first, then move to the center." Williams, a sergeant with 10 years of service, raised an eyebrow. "You've done this before." "Once or twice." Kira looked at each of them. "Any questions?" Silence. "Then stack up." What happened next took 4 minutes and 37 seconds. Kira's team moved through the building like water through pipes. Smooth, silent, coordinated. Each room was cleared with textbook precision. Slice the pie, check the corners, communicate with hand signals, move to the next objective. They found the first role player in room 2. He was holding a weapon. "Drop it," Callahan commanded. The role player complied. Secured without a shot fired. Second role player in room 4. Same result. Third role player was in the back bedroom with the hostage. He had a simulated knife to the hostage's throat. Most teams would have hesitated, waited for negotiation, called for backup. Kira didn't hesitate. She stepped into the doorway, weapon raised, and said one word: "Release." The role player, a Marine staff sergeant named Torres, who'd played bad guys in 100 training exercises, looked into her eyes and saw something that made his grip on the knife falter. Not fear, not aggression, certainty. The kind of certainty that came from having done this in real life, from having actually pulled triggers, from having actually saved hostages, from having actually killed men who needed killing. Torres released the hostage. "Building clear," Callahan shouted. Coyle checked his stopwatch, checked his clipboard, checked again. Team 2, scenario complete, 0 casualties, all hostiles neutralized, hostage secured. He looked up at Kira. That's the fastest clear time I've seen in 15 years of running this exercise. Tyler stood at the building entrance, watching. His hands were shaking. Kira walked past him without a word, but she didn't need words. The results spoke for themselves. Tyler stood at the building entrance, hands shaking, watching her disappear into the afternoon heat. Tomorrow would bring the final test, and he had a feeling that whatever he thought he knew about strength was about to be completely destroyed. The afternoon brought the evolution everyone had been dreading: combat casualty care under stress, multiple simulated casualties, limited supplies, active hostile fire using blank ammunition and pyrotechnics designed to create confusion and panic. This was where most people broke. Kira had done this for real, had treated actual wounds under actual fire, had watched men die because help came 30 seconds too late. She wasn't going to let that happen here, not even in simulation. The scenario started with an explosion, a pyrotechnic charge designed to disorient. Then blank ammunition began cracking from 3 directions. Then the screaming started. Casualties! Multiple casualties! Most participants froze. Some panicked. Some forgot everything they'd ever learned about tactical combat casualty care. Tyler was kneeling beside a mannequin with simulated arterial bleeding. His hands were shaking so badly he couldn't grip the tourniquet. "Come on," he muttered. "Come on, come on, come on." "You're doing it wrong." Kira appeared beside him, calm, focused, her voice cutting through the chaos like a blade through smoke. "The tourniquet goes 2 inches above the wound, not on it. You're trying to occlude the artery feeding the injury, not the injury itself." "I know that," Tyler snapped. "Then do it." Tyler's hands kept shaking. He dropped the tourniquet, cursed, picked it up, dropped it again. Kira reached past him and took the tourniquet from his hands. "Watch." She applied it in 3 seconds. Perfect placement, perfect tension. The simulated bleeding stopped. "Now the chest seal." She pointed to another mannequin nearby. "That one has a penetrating chest wound. Do you know the procedure?" Yes, I think." "Don't think. No. Walk me through it." Tyler's brain scrambled for the training he'd received months ago. "Identify the wound. Clean the area. Apply the seal during exhalation." "During exhalation? Why?" Because. Because you want to prevent air from entering the chest cavity. If you apply during inhalation, you trap air inside, which can cause tension pneumothorax, which will kill your casualty faster than the original wound. Kira nodded. "Good. Now go apply it. I'll handle the other casualties." She was gone before he could respond. For the next 12 minutes, Kira moved through the scenario like a surgeon in an emergency room, triaging casualties, directing treatment, correcting errors before they became fatal. She saved every single mannequin. When the scenario ended, Coyle gathered the participants for a debrief. "That was the most chaotic CCC exercise I've seen in 5 years," he said. "Half of you forgot basic protocols. A quarter of you froze completely, and a few of you," his eyes found Kira, "performed like you've done this under actual combat conditions." Tyler stood at the back of the group staring at the ground. He'd watched Kira work, watched her move, watched her hands, steady, precise, unhesitating, do things that his hands couldn't do. And for the first time since the assessment began, he started to wonder if maybe he'd been wrong about her. That night, around the assessment camp's fire, the dynamic had shifted. Marines who'd ignored Kira before now sat closer to her, asked questions, listened when she spoke. "Where'd you learn all that?" Patterson asked. "The building clearance, the medical work? I've been in 3 years and never seen anyone move like you." "Training and experience," Kira said, "in places where mistakes got people killed." Silence fell over the group. Callahan cleared his throat. "Petty Officer Blackwood, if you don't mind my asking, what's your actual MOS, your actual job?" "Cryptologic technician. Signals intelligence." "Signals intelligence." Callahan shook his head slowly. Signals intelligence people don't move like you move. Some do. Name one. Kira looked up from the fire, met Callahan's eyes directly. I can't. The words hung in the air like smoke. Callahan nodded slowly. Message received. Across the fire, Tyler sat alone, watching the exchange. His face was unreadable, but his hands were clenched into fists at his sides. Something was building behind his eyes. Something that might have been anger or shame or something far more dangerous. Kira noticed, cataloged it, filed it away. Tomorrow was day 3, the final evolution. Whatever Tyler was planning, it would happen then. The next morning started wrong. Kira woke to find her pack had been moved. Nothing was missing. She checked immediately, but someone had gone through her gear while she slept. Looking for something. She knew who, and she knew why. Tyler wanted to find evidence of who she really was. Wanted to expose her as a fraud or confirm her as a threat. Either way, he wanted ammunition. He hadn't found any. The trident and the dog tags never left her neck, but the violation was clear, personal, deliberate. Final evolution begins in 30 minutes, Coyle announced at morning formation. 24-hour patrol-based defense. You'll establish a defensive position, maintain security rotations, and respond to simulated attacks throughout the day and night. Anyone who breaks protocol gets documented. Anyone who falls asleep on watch gets documented. Anyone who fails to maintain unit cohesion gets documented. He paused. And at the end, there will be a hand-to-hand combat assessment. One-on-one, full contact. Evaluators will match participants based on weight class and experience level. Kira felt the weight of Tyler's stare without turning her head. This was what he'd been waiting for. Not tactics, not endurance, not medical skills. Violence. The one arena where he believed he still held the advantage. The patrol-based defense started at 0800. For the first 6 hours, everything ran smoothly. Kira's team established overlapping fields of fire, maintained strict noise discipline, and rotated security positions with clockwork precision. Tyler's team struggled. By hour 8, Martinez had fallen asleep on watch. Patterson had wandered out of position to urinate and nearly gotten killed by a simulated attack. And Tyler himself was making tactical errors, putting sentries in exposed positions, failing to account for dead space, ignoring basic counter-surveillance protocols. Callahan watched from across the defensive perimeter, occasionally catching Kira's eye with a raised eyebrow that said, "Are you seeing this?" She was seeing it, but she was also seeing something else. Tyler wasn't just failing, he was deteriorating. Hour by hour, his judgment was getting worse. His temper was getting shorter. His focus was fragmenting into something chaotic and unpredictable. By hour 12, he looked like a man coming apart at the seams. "Corporal Brennan," Coyle's voice cut through the afternoon heat, "you've got 2 men out of position and a gap in your defensive coverage wide enough to drive a tank through. Fix it." "Yes, Master Guns." Tyler tried to fix it. Made it worse. "Corporal Brennan, your sentry rotation just left your command post completely undefended for 4 minutes. In a real scenario, you'd be dead." "Yes, Master Guns." He tried again, failed again. By hour 18, Tyler wasn't just making mistakes. He was making catastrophic errors that would have resulted in his entire team's deaths in actual combat. Kira watched it happen and felt something she hadn't expected. Pity. Not sympathy, not forgiveness, just the cold recognition that Tyler was what her father would have called all hat and no cattle. A man who'd built his entire identity on being a warrior without ever actually becoming one. And now that identity was crumbling in front of everyone. Hour 20, hour 22. By hour 23, most participants were running on fumes. Sleep deprivation combined with stress created a fog that clouded judgment and slowed reactions. Kira was tired but focused. She'd done this before, done it longer, done it with actual enemies trying to kill her. Tyler was a wreck. His eyes were bloodshot. His hands trembled. His voice cracked when he gave orders. And when Coyle announced that the hand-to-hand combat assessment would begin in 1 hour, something in Tyler's face changed, shifted, hardened into something ugly and desperate and dangerous. Match assignments, Coyle read from his clipboard. Patterson versus Williams, Martinez versus Henderson, Rodriguez versus Kowalski. He paused. Brennan versus Blackwood. Kira felt the air change, felt the attention of every remaining participant focus on her. Tyler smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. It was the smile of a man who'd finally found a way to salvage his pride. Finally, he said, finally, we get to see what the little squid is really made of. The combat assessment mat had been laid out in a clearing near the camp center, 20 feet by 20 feet of padded surface that would absorb falls but not eliminate pain. Evaluators stood at each corner with clipboards and stopwatches. The remaining participants formed a loose circle around the perimeter, exhausted but alert, sensing that something significant was about to happen. Kira approached the mat slowly, rolling her shoulders, loosening her joints. She'd removed her blouse and wore only her brown undershirt, dog tags tucked inside, the thin silver chain barely visible against her collarbone. Her body was lean and functional, not bulky with gym muscle like Tyler's, but wired with the kind of strength that came from actual use. Tyler was already on the mat, bouncing on his toes like a boxer before a title fight. He'd stripped down to his undershirt too. His arms were thick with veins, pumped from 3 days of physical exertion and a lifetime of weights. Rules are simple, Coyle announced. Standard combatives, strikes, grappling, submissions. Match ends on tap-out, knockout, or evaluator stoppage. No eye gouges, no groin strikes, no strikes to the throat. He paused. Questions? Yeah, Tyler said, still bouncing. Does she get a handicap for being a girl? Scattered nervous laughter from the crowd. Kira didn't react. No handicaps, Coyle said flatly. Step to center. They met in the middle of the mat. Tyler had 6 inches and nearly 100 pounds on her. He looked down at Kira like a wolf sizing up a rabbit. Last chance to tap out, squid, he said quietly, too low for the evaluators to hear. No shame in admitting you're outmatched. Kira looked up at him. Her eyes were calm, empty, the eyes of someone who'd faced far worse than a Marine corporal with an ego problem. Begin, Coyle called. Tyler lunged. He was fast for his size. Kira gave him that. His right hand came in hard, a haymaker designed to end the fight before it started. The kind of punch that worked in bar brawls and gym showdowns against people who didn't know how to move. Kira wasn't one of those people. She slipped left, letting his fist sail past her ear by less than an inch. Her hand came up, not to strike, but to guide. She redirected his momentum, used his own force against him. And suddenly Tyler was stumbling past her, off balance, exposed. She could have ended it there, could have applied any of a dozen techniques that would have put him on the ground with a joint lock or a choke. Instead, she stepped back, reset, waited. Tyler spun around, face flushed with embarrassment and rage. Lucky, he spat. He came again, this time smarter. A jab-cross combination followed by a level change for a takedown attempt. Textbook Marine Corps combatives. Kira sprawled on the takedown, her hips dropping low, her hands pushing down on Tyler's shoulders. He couldn't complete the shot. She spun out of his grip and created distance again. Still didn't counterattack. Fight back, Tyler shouted. Stop running. I'm not running. Then hit me. Kira tilted her head slightly. Why? The question seemed to short-circuit something in Tyler's brain. He'd expected resistance, expected aggression, expected a fight he could win through superior strength and weight. What he got was a woman who moved like water and refused to engage on his terms. Because that's what this is, he said through gritted teeth. A fight. Or are you too scared? I'm not scared of you, Corporal. Then prove it. Kira's jaw tightened, almost imperceptibly. You don't want me to prove it. Yeah, I do. No. Her voice dropped. You really don't. Tyler charged. This time he committed everything. Full speed, full power, arms wide for a body lock that would take her to the ground and let his weight do the work. It was the move of a man who'd stopped thinking and started reacting. Kira didn't run. She stepped into his charge. What happened next took less than 2 seconds, but everyone watching would remember it for the rest of their lives. Kira's hands found Tyler's wrist and elbow. She pivoted, dropped her center of gravity, and used his momentum to execute a textbook hip throw that sent 220 pounds of Marine Corporal sailing through the air like a rag doll. Tyler hit the mat hard. The impact drove the air from his lungs. Before he could recover, Kira was on him. Her legs wrapped around his torso, her arms snaked around his neck. A rear naked choke. Perfectly applied, perfectly controlled. Tyler thrashed, bucked, tried to pry her arms away. Her grip didn't budge. Tap, Kira said quietly, her mouth close to his ear. It's over. Just tap. Go to hell, Tyler gasped. He kept fighting. His face went red, then purple. His movements became sluggish, uncoordinated. Tap, Kira repeated. I don't want to put you to sleep, but I will. I'm not tapping to a... He couldn't finish the sentence. His hand came up, slapped the mat twice. Kira released immediately, rolled away, stood up in one fluid motion. Tyler lay on the mat, gasping for air, staring at the sky with an expression that mixed shock, humiliation, and something else. Something that might have been the beginning of understanding. Coyle marked his clipboard. Match by submission. Time, 47 seconds. The crowd was silent. Callahan let out a low whistle. 47 seconds, one Marine muttered. That's impossible. Brennan's got 100 pounds on her. How did she... She's not what she seems, Callahan said quietly. None of us knew, but we're about to find out. Kira walked to the edge of the mat. She wasn't breathing hard, wasn't sweating, wasn't showing any sign that she just submitted a man nearly twice her weight in less than a minute. She reached for her canteen. That was when Tyler attacked. He came up from the mat like something possessed. No warning, no announcement, just pure, unfiltered rage propelling him toward the woman who'd humiliated him in front of everyone. Blackwood, Callahan shouted. She turned. Too late. Tyler's shoulder hit her in the midsection like a battering ram. The impact drove her backward, off the mat, onto the hard-packed dirt. Her canteen went flying. Her body hit the ground with a sound that made everyone wince. Tyler was on top of her instantly, pinning her down with his weight, his hands going for her throat. Think you're better than me? He screamed. Think you can just... Kira's training kicked in. Not the restrained, controlled techniques she'd used on the mat. Something older. Something she'd learned in places where hesitation meant death. Her palm shot upward, catching Tyler under the chin. His head snapped back. Before he could recover, her hips bucked violently, creating space. Her legs wrapped around his arm. She twisted. Tyler screamed. She had him in an armbar. The kind of armbar that separated shoulders from sockets if you didn't tap immediately. Stop! Coyle shouted, running toward them. Both of you, stop! Kira didn't stop. She couldn't. Her body was operating on autopilot now. Years of combat training overriding conscious thought. She torqued the armbar harder. Tyler screamed again, and then the chain snapped. The thin silver chain she'd worn since Yemen, the one that held her trident and the dog tags of her fallen teammates. It broke under the violence of the struggle. The chain slid off her neck. The contents spilled onto the dirt. A Navy SEAL trident badge landed 3 inches from Tyler's face. 2 dog tags landed beside it. Time stopped. Tyler stared at the trident. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. That's not... Kira released the armbar, rolled away, grabbed the chain, the badge, the dog tags. But it was too late. Everyone had seen. "Holy Mother of God," Martinez whispered. The crowd stood frozen, staring at the small Navy woman clutching a trident badge to her chest. Her hands were shaking, the first sign of weakness she'd shown in 3 days. Tyler sat in the dirt, cradling his arm, his entire worldview shattered and scattered around him like the contents of that broken chain. And somewhere in the distance, the sound of boots on gravel announced that someone important was coming, someone who would change everything. Colonel Victoria Ashford pushed through the crowd. She'd clearly been summoned from the command post. Her uniform was slightly disheveled, her hair escaping its regulation bun. But her eyes were sharp as she took in the scene. Tyler on the ground, Kira standing over him, the trident visible in her hand. "Well," Ashford said quietly, "I suppose the secret's out." "You knew?" Martinez asked, his voice rising. "Ma'am, you knew what she was?" "I knew." Ashford moved to stand beside Kira. "I've known since she arrived. Her file, her real file, requires special clearance to access. I accessed it 3 weeks ago when I started hearing reports about certain Marines harassing a Navy petty officer." Her eyes found Tyler. "I decided that instead of simply punishing the behavior, I'd create an opportunity for everyone to learn something, including you, Corporal." "Learn what?" Tyler asked. His voice was hoarse, broken. "That strength isn't about size or volume or intimidation. It's about what you do when you have power over someone else." Ashford looked at Kira. "Petty Officer Blackwood had the power to destroy you multiple times. In the mess hall, on the combat mat, just now when you attacked her from behind. Each time she chose restraint." "Why?" Tyler asked. He was looking at Kira now, really looking. "Why would you let me do all those things to you when you could have stopped me?" Kira was quiet for a moment. Then she crouched down so she was at eye level with him. "Because I've been where you are, Corporal. Not the same situation, but the same feeling. Desperate to prove yourself. Terrified that you're not good enough. Building your identity on being the strongest, the toughest, the most dangerous person in the room." She paused. "And then you meet someone who shows you that everything you thought you knew was wrong. What did you do when that happened to you?" Kira stood. "I got better. That's the only choice that matters. When someone shows you that you're not what you thought you were, you can either get bitter or get better. The bitter ones never grow. The better ones become the warriors they always wanted to be." She extended her hand to Tyler. He stared at it for a long moment. Then slowly he took it. Kira pulled him to his feet. "I'm sorry," he said. The words came out rough, like they'd been scraped from somewhere deep. "For the mess hall. For all of it, I'm sorry. I know. I didn't understand. I know that too. I want to be better." Tyler's voice cracked. "I don't know how, but I want to try." Kira nodded. "That's a start." Coyle cleared his throat. "Colonel Ashford, with respect, what happens now? The assessment is technically complete, but given what's just been revealed—" "What's been revealed doesn't change the results," Ashford said. "Petty Officer Blackwood participated in this assessment under the same rules as everyone else. She earned her scores. They'll stand." "And Corporal Brennan?" Ashford looked at Tyler. Really looked. The way a commanding officer looks at a Marine she's deciding whether to salvage or discard. "Corporal Brennan will receive formal counseling for his assault on Petty Officer Blackwood in the mess hall, as well as for his conduct during today's combat assessment. Those incidents will be documented in his service record." Tyler nodded. He looked like a man accepting a sentence he knew he deserved. "However," Ashford continued, "the purpose of this assessment was evaluation and education, not punishment. If Corporal Brennan demonstrates genuine growth in the coming months, there may be opportunities for that record to be reviewed." "Ma'am," Tyler's voice was steadier now, "I want to request something." "Go ahead." "I want to attend the next Marine Raider assessment and selection. I've been talking about being a warrior my whole career, but I've never actually done anything to earn that title. I want to try. For real this time. Ashford raised an eyebrow. Raiders selection has a 90% attrition rate, Corporal. Most candidates don't make it past the first week. I know, ma'am. And you want to attempt it anyway? After what's just happened here? Tyler looked at Kira. She told me I could get bitter or get better. I'm choosing better. Ashford was quiet for a moment, then she nodded. I'll approve your request. But understand this, Corporal. If you wash out and come back to this command with the same attitude you had before, I will personally ensure you spend the rest of your career cleaning latrines at the worst duty station I can find. Understood, ma'am. Good. Ashford turned to address the assembled crowd. This assessment is officially concluded. Results will be posted tomorrow. Everyone is dismissed to recover and prepare for return to normal duties. The crowd began to disperse, but slowly, people kept looking back at Kira, at the trident still visible in her hand, at the dog tags she'd refastened around her neck, using a length of paracord borrowed from Callahan. Callahan stepped forward slowly, his eyes fixed on what Kira was clutching to her chest. Petty Officer Blackwood, is that what I think it is? Kira didn't answer. Her hands were shaking, the first sign of weakness prolonged. She was trying to reattach the chain, but her fingers wouldn't cooperate. Answer the question, Petty Officer. Coyle's voice was quiet, controlled, but there was something underneath it, something like awe. Is that a trident? Yes. The single word fell like a bomb. That's impossible, Tyler said. He was still on the ground, cradling his arm, but his eyes were locked on Kira. Women can't be SEALs. It's not allowed. There's no such thing as a female. There is now, Callahan said. He'd moved closer to Kira, positioned himself between her and Tyler like a protective barrier. The integration program, I read about it, started in 2020. First female candidates graduated BUD/S in 2022. 3 of them. I was one of them, Kira said quietly. She'd given up on the chain and was holding the trident in her closed fist. The silence that followed was absolute. Coyle broke it first. What team? 4. Deployment? Kira hesitated. Look at the dog tags in her other hand. Yemen, 2024. Coyle's face changed. Christ, the hostage extraction. 14 Americans from the Houthi compound. Yes, 80-1 odds. The team held the compound for 36 hours. Kira's voice was flat, distant, like she was reciting facts about someone else's life. We held for 36 hours until extraction could reach us. We lost 2 operators, Petty Officer Owen Garrett and Chief Petty Officer Nolan Hayes. She held up the dog tags. I carry them every day so I don't forget what they died for. Tyler had managed to sit up. He was staring at Kira like he'd never seen her before, like everything he thought he knew had been torn apart and rearranged into something unrecognizable. You're a SEAL, he said. An actual SEAL. Yes. And I, in the mess hall, I hit a SEAL. You hit a woman eating lunch, Kira corrected. You didn't know what I was. You just knew I was smaller than you. Female. Alone. You thought that made me a target. I didn't know. That's the point, Corporal. Kira's voice hardened. You didn't know. You didn't care. You saw someone you thought was weak, and you decided to prove how strong you were by hurting them. She stepped closer to him. That's not strength. That's cowardice. Tyler flinched like she'd hit him. I could have killed you in the mess hall, Kira continued. Could have ended you before you even understood what was happening. Do you know why I didn't? He shook his head. Because I made a promise. She looked at the dog tags again. To them, to my father, to myself. I promised that if I survived, I'd find another way. A way that didn't involve hurting people unless lives depended on it. She paused. Your life didn't depend on it. The words hit Tyler harder than any punch. He looked away, couldn't meet her eyes. Martinez approached hesitantly. Petty officer, can I ask you something? Go ahead. In Yemen, during the siege, what was it like? Kira was quiet for a long moment. The question brought back images she'd spent 14 months trying to forget. The smell of cordite and blood, the sound of rounds cracking past her head. Owen Garrett's voice, calm even as he bled out, telling her to get the hostages out, to not wait for him, to finish the mission. It was the worst 3 days of my life, she said finally, and also the best. We saved 14 people who would have died without us. We lost 2 brothers who deserved to live. And we proved that when everything goes wrong, the only thing that matters is the person standing next to you. Martinez nodded slowly. Thank you for telling me, and for not killing Brennan when you had the chance. Kira almost smiled. He wasn't worth the paperwork. Martinez laughed, a surprised, genuine laugh, and walked away. Kira stood in the clearing as the crowd dispersed. The trident felt heavy in her hand, heavier than it had in months. She'd spent 14 months hiding what she was, pretending to be something smaller, weaker, less than the warrior she'd been trained to become. And now everyone knew. The secret was out. The cover was blown. Whatever peace she'd hoped to find in anonymity was gone forever. But as she looked at the dog tags around her neck, as she remembered Owen Garrett's last words, "You're not done yet, Ghost," not by a long shot, she realized that maybe peace wasn't what she needed. Maybe what she needed was purpose. And purpose, she was about to learn, had been looking for her too. The knock on Colonel Ashford's office door came at 0700 the next morning. Kira had been summoned by official message, delivered by a runner who'd looked at her with a mixture of awe and uncertainty that she was already learning to recognize. "Enter," Ashford called. Kira stepped inside and came to attention. "Petty Officer 3rd Class Blackwood, reporting as ordered, ma'am." "At ease. Close the door." Kira closed the door and turned back to find Ashford studying her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Behind Ashford's desk, through the window, the morning sun cast long shadows across the base. "Sit down, Petty Officer." Kira sat. Ashford was quiet for a moment, her fingers steepled in front of her face. Then she reached into her desk drawer and pulled out a folder. The cover was marked with classification stamps that made Kira's stomach tighten. "I received a call last night," Ashford said, "from Naval Special Warfare Command, specifically from Admiral Catherine Reeves." Kira's breath caught. Admiral Reeves was the commander of all SEAL operations, the highest-ranking officer in the community, the woman who had personally pinned Kira's trident on her chest 2 years ago. The Admiral was interested to learn that one of her operators had been involved in an incident at a Marine Corps base. Ashford's voice was neutral, but there was something underneath it. She was particularly interested to learn that said operator had been assaulted by a Marine corporal and had chosen not to respond with force. "Ma'am, I'm not finished." Ashford opened the folder. "Admiral Reeves sent me your complete service record, not the sanitized version I accessed 3 weeks ago, the real one, the one that details every operation you've participated in since you earned your trident." Kira said nothing. Her hands were steady in her lap, but her heart was pounding. 14 classified operations across 3 continents, Ashford read. Yemen, obviously, but also Syria, Somalia, a location in Eastern Europe that's redacted so heavily I can't even determine which country it was in. Direct action support, tactical intelligence, combat casualty care, she looked up, and 17 confirmed kills in defensive engagements. The number hung in the air like smoke. 17, Ashford repeated. "You're 22 years old and you've killed 17 people." "Yes, ma'am." "How do you sleep at night?" The question wasn't accusatory, it was genuine, curious. "Some nights I don't," Kira said quietly. "Some nights I see their faces. Some nights I hear Owen and Nolan telling me it's okay, that we did what we had to do." She paused. "Most nights I just try to remember that every person I killed was trying to kill me or my teammates first." Ashford nodded slowly. Admiral Reeves told me something else. She told me that you're the most naturally talented operator she's seen in 30 years. That your instructors at BUD/S said you moved like you'd been doing this your whole life. That your team leader in Yemen, before he was killed in Ramadi, called you Ghost because you could disappear into any environment and emerge exactly where the enemy least expected you. Lieutenant Commander Brooks gave me that name, Kira said. He was the best officer I ever served under. He's dead now. Yes, ma'am. And you blame yourself? Kira's jaw tightened. I don't blame myself for his death. He died 8 months after Yemen, on a different operation in a different country. I wasn't there. But I wonder sometimes if I could have been, if I hadn't requested transfer, if I'd stayed with the team instead of running away. Is that what you think you did? Ran away? Kira didn't answer immediately. The question cut deeper than Ashford probably intended. I told myself I was honoring Owen and Nolan's sacrifice, she said finally. Told myself that finding peace was what they would have wanted. But the truth is, she stopped, swallowed. The truth is, I was afraid. Of what? Of becoming someone who didn't feel anything anymore. Of turning into a weapon that couldn't turn off. Kira looked at her hands. Scarred, calloused, capable of violence most people couldn't imagine. My father taught me that warriors protect. They don't just destroy. But after Yemen, after everything I'd done and seen, I wasn't sure I remembered how to protect without destroying. So I ran. Ashford closed the folder, leaned back in her chair. Admiral Reeves wants you back, she said. Kira's head snapped up. What? She's offering you a position with a new unit, Female Integration Training Detachment. You'd be responsible for preparing the next generation of women for special operations selection and training, teaching them everything you know, helping them avoid the mistakes you made. I didn't make mistakes in the field. I'm not talking about the field. Ashford's voice softened. I'm talking about after. The running, the hiding, the pretending to be something smaller than you are. She leaned forward. You're not the only female operator who struggled with integration into a community that wasn't built for women. You're just the first one with enough experience to help others navigate it. Kira sat very still. The offer was everything she should want. Purpose, meaning, a chance to shape the future of women in special operations. But accepting it meant going back. Meant returning to a world she tried so hard to leave behind. I don't know if I can do that, she said. Can't or won't. Both. Either. Kira shook her head. Ma'am, I came to Pendleton to disappear, to find some kind of normal life. Teaching at a training unit isn't normal. It's just a different kind of operational. You're right, Ashford said. It is. But let me ask you something, petty officer. In the 14 months since you left your team, have you found the peace you were looking for? Kira didn't answer. Didn't need to. I didn't think so. Ashford stood and walked around her desk to stand in front of Kira. You know what I see when I look at you? I see a warrior who's been trying to be something else, and it's killing you. Not fast, not dramatically, but slowly, day by day. Every time you swallow an insult from someone like Brennan. Every time you pretend you're just a paper pusher. Every time you look in the mirror and see a stranger. Ma'am, I'm not finished. You made a promise to your fallen teammates, a promise to find another way. But hiding isn't another way, petty officer. It's no way at all. Ashford's voice hardened. Another way means using what they taught you to help others survive what you survived. Another way means standing up and showing the next generation what's possible. Kira felt something crack inside her chest. Something she'd been holding together with duct tape and denial for 14 months. I don't know how to teach, she said. Her voice sounded small, young, not like a decorated SEAL operator at all. I know how to operate, how to fight, how to survive. But teaching, that's different. Is it? Ashford raised an eyebrow. What did you do during the combat casualty care evolution When Brennan couldn't apply a tourniquet, I showed him how. And the tactical scenarios when your team needed guidance, I explained what to do. That's teaching, petty officer. You've been doing it for 3 days. And from what Coyle tells me, you're damn good at it. Kira blinked. She hadn't thought of it that way, had been so focused on hiding her capabilities that she hadn't recognized when she was actually using them to help others improve. The offer stands, Ashford said. Admiral Reeves will be here tomorrow to discuss the details personally. You have until then to decide. And if I say no, then you go back to your desk job, push papers until your enlistment ends, disappear into civilian life like you planned. Ashford's voice was matter-of-fact, but her eyes held something else, something like disappointment. It's your choice, petty officer. It always has been. The door to Ashford's office opened. An aide stepped in. Ma'am, sorry to interrupt. There's a situation at the main gate. Ashford frowned. What kind of situation? A civilian woman. She's asking for Petty Officer Blackwood specifically. Says she's family. She's insistent. Kira's blood went cold. There was only one person who would come looking for her. One person who qualified as family. Her mother. Margaret Blackwood had remarried 3 years after William Blackwood died, moved to San Diego, started a new life with a man who sold insurance, and had never held a weapon more dangerous than a golf club. She and Kira hadn't spoken in 18 months, not since Kira had told her about earning the Trident, and Margaret had responded by screaming that Kira was throwing her life away, just like her father had. Petty officer? Ashford's voice cut through Kira's paralysis. Do you want me to have her turned away? Kira stood. Her legs felt unsteady. No, ma'am, I'll handle it. Are you sure? No. Kira took a breath. But I need to do it anyway. She found her mother at the main gate, arguing with the MPs. Margaret was 51 now, her dark hair streaked with gray, her face lined with worry and anger, and something else that Kira didn't want to examine too closely. Kira. Margaret's voice cracked when she saw her daughter. Kira, thank God. Mom. Kira kept her voice neutral. What are you doing here? What am I doing here? Margaret stepped forward, arms raised like she wanted to embrace Kira, but didn't know if she was allowed. I saw the news. Someone leaked a video from that assessment. It's all over the internet. My daughter, my baby girl, being attacked by some Marine, and then she... Margaret's voice broke. I saw what you did to him. I saw you almost break his arm. Kira's stomach dropped. Someone had recorded the fight, the aftermath, the revelation. The secret wasn't just out at Camp Pendleton anymore. It was everywhere. I had to come, Margaret continued. Her hands were shaking. I had to see you, to make sure you were okay, to... She stopped, swallowed. To apologize. Apologize for what? For everything. Tears were streaming down Margaret's face now. For not understanding why you enlisted. For screaming at you when you told me about the SEALs. For treating you like a child instead of the warrior you are. She reached out and grabbed Kira's hands. I was so scared, baby. So scared of losing you the way I lost Will. I thought if I pushed you away, if I was angry enough, maybe you'd quit. Maybe you'd come home and be safe. Mom, I watched that video 100 times. 100 times I watched my daughter take down a man twice her size without even breathing hard. And I realized, Margaret's voice dropped to a whisper, I realized I don't even know who you are anymore. My baby girl is a warrior, a real warrior, and I've been treating her like a child who made a bad decision. Kira felt her own eyes burning. She'd spent 18 months convincing herself that her mother's rejection didn't hurt, that she didn't need Margaret's approval, that she could be a SEAL and a daughter at the same time, even if her mother couldn't accept it. But standing here watching Margaret cry, Kira realized how much she'd been lying to herself. I am what Dad made me, Kira said quietly, what he trained me to be. I know you hated that part of him, the part that was always ready for violence. But that part saved lives, Mom. In Afghanistan, in Yemen, and at that assessment, when that Marine attacked me, that part is the only reason I didn't kill him. I know. Margaret wiped her eyes. I know that now. I didn't before. I thought, I thought if you became like Will, you'd end up like Will, dead in some desert for a country that wouldn't even acknowledge your sacrifice. That might still happen. I know. Margaret's hands tightened on Kira's. But I'd rather spend whatever time we have being your mother than spend the rest of my life regretting that I pushed you away. Kira pulled her mother into a hug. It was awkward at first. They hadn't embraced in years. But then Margaret's arms came around her, and Kira felt something she hadn't felt since her father died. Home. I'm sorry too, Kira whispered, for not calling, for not trying harder to make you understand, for shutting you out because it was easier than fighting. We're both stubborn, Margaret said into her shoulder. You get it from me. Will always said I was the most stubborn woman he'd ever met. Kira laughed. It felt strange. Good, but strange. He told me the same thing about himself. They stood there for a long moment, holding each other while MPs pretended not to watch, and the California sun climbed higher in the sky. Finally, Margaret pulled back, looked at her daughter with new eyes. The video, she said. There's something else, something I need to tell you. What? Comments. Thousands of them. Millions of views. People are calling you a hero, Kira. They're saying you're proof that women belong in combat roles, that you're an inspiration. Kira's stomach tightened. I didn't do it to be an inspiration. I know, but you are one anyway. Margaret touched her daughter's face. There's also a woman, an admiral. She made a statement this morning, said something about a new training program, said she was hoping to recruit you. Admiral Reeves had made a public statement. The offer wasn't just private anymore. It was official. On the record. The pressure to accept had just multiplied 1,000-fold. I don't know what to do, Kira admitted. I came here to disappear. Now I'm viral. Baby, Margaret's voice was gentle but firm. You were never going to disappear. Not really. Your father couldn't. I spent years trying to make him be something he wasn't, and it almost destroyed our marriage. Don't make my mistake. Don't fight what you are. What am I? You're Kira Blackwood, daughter of William and Margaret, Navy SEAL, warrior. Margaret smiled through her tears, and apparently the most terrifying woman on the internet right now. Despite everything, Kira laughed again. Later that afternoon, another visitor arrived at Camp Pendleton. This one came by official helicopter, and the entire base seemed to hold its breath as Admiral Catherine Reeves stepped onto the tarmac. She was 62 years old, with silver hair cut military short, and eyes that had seen more combat than most people could imagine. She'd been one of the first female Navy pilots, had commanded ships, had broken barriers in every assignment she'd ever held, and now she commanded every SEAL on the planet. Petty Officer Blackwood, Reeves said as Kira came to attention. At ease. We're not strangers. No, ma'am. You pinned my trident yourself. Told me then that I was special. I wasn't wrong. Thank you, ma'am. That wasn't a compliment, Reeves's voice sharpened. It was a statement of fact, and facts come with responsibilities. She gestured for Kira to walk with her. They moved away from the helicopter, away from the aides and security personnel, until they were alone. I'll be direct, Reeves said. I need you, not want, need. The female integration program is at a critical juncture. We've got 3 women who've passed BUD/S, but retention is a problem. They're struggling with integration into teams that weren't designed for them. Struggling with a culture that doesn't know how to adapt. 2 of them are considering leaving the community entirely. I didn't know that. No, you've been too busy hiding to know. There was no judgment in Reeves's voice, just fact. I understand why you ran. Yemen broke something in you. Brooks's death broke something else. But running doesn't fix what's broken. It just delays the pain. Kira looked at the ground. at her boots, at the shadows stretching across the tarmac. "What would you need me to do?" she asked. "Run the Female Integration Training Detachment. Prepare candidates for selection. Mentor operators who've already passed. Build a support structure that helps women succeed in a community that's still learning how to include them." "I'm 22 years old. I don't have the rank or the experience." "You have 17 kills and a Navy Cross citation sitting in a classified file. You have survival records that make veteran operators shake their heads in disbelief. And you have something no one else has." Reeves stopped walking, turned to face Kira directly. "You're the first woman to actually do this job successfully. Not train for it, do it." Kira looked up, met Reeves's eyes. "And if I fail?" "Then you fail and we learn from it, and we try again." Reeves's expression softened slightly. "Kira, I've been breaking barriers my entire career. You know what I've learned? The fear of failure is worse than failure itself. You can recover from failing. You can't recover from never trying." "My father said something similar once." "Your father was a good man. I served with him briefly, back when I was still flying, and he was running maritime interdiction operations. He talked about you constantly, said you were going to change the world." Kira felt tears threatening, forced them back. "He died before he could see me earn my trident," she said. "But I saw it. I saw his daughter accomplish something he only dreamed of. And I'm asking you, not ordering, asking, to help other daughters accomplish the same thing." The weight of the decision pressed down on Kira like a physical force. She thought about her mother's words, about Ashford's challenge, about Owen Garrett and Nolan Hayes, and the promise she'd made in that Yemen compound while bullets cracked overhead and everything seemed lost. She thought about Lieutenant Commander Brooks bleeding out in Ramadi, telling her not to give up. She thought about Tyler, broken and humiliated, asking how to be better. And she thought about all the young women out there who wanted to serve their country the way she had, who had the talent and the drive and the courage, but lacked someone to show them the way. "Yes," Kira said. Reeves's eyebrows rose. "Yes?" "Yes, ma'am, I'll do it. I'll run the detachment. I'll train the candidates. I'll help build something that lasts." Reeves smiled. It transformed her face, made her look younger, softer. "Welcome back, Ghost." "Thank you, ma'am." "Don't thank me yet." Reeves's smile turned sharp. "The first class arrives in 3 weeks. 30 female candidates from all branches. Most of them have never experienced anything close to what you've been through. Your job is to prepare them for the worst and hope for the best." "Understood." "And Kira," Reeves put a hand on her shoulder, "your father would be proud. Not because you're a SEAL, because you're choosing to help others become one too. That's what warriors do. They build the next generation." Kira touched the dog tags under her shirt. Owen, Nolan, her father's trident that she'd worn since his funeral. "I know," she said. For the first time in 14 months, she actually believed it. 3 weeks passed faster than Kira expected. 3 weeks of paperwork and logistics, facility inspections and curriculum development, phone calls with Admiral Reeves and meetings with training specialists, and arguments with bureaucrats who didn't understand why a 22-year-old petty officer was being given command of anything. But now, standing at the front of Training Base 7 at Naval Amphibious Base Coronado, Kira understood that those 3 weeks had just been preparation for this moment. 30 women sat before her. They ranged in age from 19 to 28. Navy, Marine Corps, Army, Air Force, every branch represented, every background imaginable. Some had college degrees, some had barely finished high school. Some came from military families. Some were the first in their families to ever serve. But they all had one thing in common. They wanted to be what Kira was. "My name is Petty Officer First Class Kira Blackwood," she said. Her voice carried easily across the bay. Not loud, but clear, commanding. Some of you may have seen video footage of me from a few weeks ago. Some of you may have read articles or heard rumors. So let me tell you what's true and what isn't. She paused. Let them wait. I am a Navy SEAL, one of the first women to complete BUD/S and earn the Trident. I have deployed to combat zones on 4 continents. I have killed 17 people in defensive engagements. I have watched teammates die in my arms. I have been wounded, captured, and left for dead in places that don't appear on any map. 30 pairs of eyes stared at her with a mixture of awe and fear. That's what's true. Now here's what isn't. Kira stepped closer to them. I am not special. I am not superhuman. I am not blessed with some genetic gift that makes me better than you. Everything I've accomplished, I accomplished through training, discipline, and refusing to quit when everything inside me screamed to give up. She pointed at a woman in the front row. What's your name? Petty Officer Second Class Jennifer Walsh, ma'am. Walsh, why are you here? Walsh swallowed. To become a SEAL, ma'am. Why? Because I want to serve my country at the highest level possible. Good answer. Kira moved to the next woman. You. Name? Sergeant Brianna Mitchell, ma'am. Why are you here, Mitchell? My brother was killed in Afghanistan. Mitchell's voice was steady, but her eyes glistened. He was a Marine Raider. I want to honor his memory by becoming what he was. Revenge? No, ma'am. Continuation. Kira nodded slowly. Better answer. She worked her way through the entire group, asking the same question, receiving 30 different responses. Some were motivated by patriotism, some by personal tragedy, some by a desire to prove that women could do anything men could do. One woman, Sergeant Mitchell, gave an answer that stopped Kira cold. I'm here because of you, ma'am. Explain. I watched that video, the one from the assessment. I watched you take down that Marine without breaking a sweat. I watched you hold back when you could have destroyed him. Mitchell's voice was fierce. I've been told my whole life what I can't do. Too small, too female, too everything. But you showed me that all of that was a lie. If you can be a SEAL, so can I. Kira felt something shift in her chest, something that had been locked away since Yemen. Stand up, Mitchell. Mitchell stood. She was 5'6", muscular, with the bearing of someone who'd already proven herself in difficult situations. You want to know why I held back against that Marine? Kira asked. Yes, ma'am. It wasn't mercy. It wasn't restraint. It was choice. The most powerful weapon a warrior has isn't strength or speed or training. It's the ability to choose when to fight and when to walk away. She looked at the entire group. Most of you will not complete this program. Statistics say 90% of you will quit or be eliminated before the first phase ends. That's not because you're women. That's because special operations selection is designed to break people. It breaks men at the same rate. She paused. The question isn't whether you'll be broken. The question is what you'll do when it happens. Kira reached under her shirt and pulled out the trident, held it up so everyone could see. This is what you're fighting for, this piece of metal. It weighs about 2 ounces. It's worth nothing at any pawn shop, but it represents something that can't be bought or inherited or faked. It represents the willingness to suffer more than you thought possible for people you may never meet. She tucked the trident back under her shirt. Your training begins at 0400 tomorrow. Be here or don't. The choice is yours. She turned and walked out of the training bay without looking back. Behind her, 30 women sat in silence, contemplating the road ahead. 6 months later, Sergeant Brianna Mitchell earned her trident. She became the 4th woman in history to complete BUD/S and the first graduate of Kira's program to make it through. 3 more followed within the year. Tyler Brennan deployed to Africa and distinguished himself in combat operations that saved 17 civilian lives. He sent Kira a letter afterward, thanking her again for the lesson that had changed everything. Margaret Blackwood moved to San Diego to be closer to her daughter. They had dinner every Sunday, rebuilding a relationship that had nearly been destroyed by fear and misunderstanding. Staff Sergeant Raymond Callahan retired from active duty at age 61, but returned as a civilian instructor for the Female Integration Training Detachment. He told Kira once, over coffee, that watching her build the next generation was the best ending to his career he could have imagined. Rodriguez, the young corpsman who'd looked 12 years old on day one of the assessment, requested transfer to SEAL training after witnessing Kira's performance. He didn't make it through Hell Week, but he went back to the fleet as a changed man with a new respect for what operators endured. And every morning, Kira woke up and went to work training the next generation of warriors, passing forward what Owen and Nolan and her father had taught her. Not just how to fight, how to protect, how to serve, how to choose. The final image was burned into memory forever. Kira stood in Training Base 7, surrounded by Class 2. Another 30 faces. Another group of women who wanted to change the world. She was pinning a trident on Brianna Mitchell's chest. The ceremony was small, intimate, but the weight of it was enormous. Behind them, dozens of female candidates from previous classes watched. Some had made it, some hadn't. But all of them understood what they were witnessing, a legacy being built, one warrior at a time. Kira stepped back from Mitchell, rendered a salute. Mitchell returned it, her eyes shining with tears and pride and determination. And somewhere in Kira's memory, Nolan Hayes' voice echoed one last time. "You're not done yet, Ghost. Not by a long shot." Kira touched the dog tags at her throat, looked at the women around her, the warriors she was building, the future she was creating. And for the first time since Yemen, she smiled, because she finally understood what her father had been trying to teach her all along. Warriors don't just win battles. They create the warriors who will win the battles yet to come. That was William Blackwood's legacy. That was Owen Garrett and Nolan Hayes' sacrifice. And that was Kira Blackwood's choice, every single day, for the rest of her life.